Hello and welcome to another IFTWA webinar. Today we have a very special and timely program for you. We're going to be talking about Minneapolis. And right now, Minnesota's dining scene is facing an unprecedented moment with independent restaurants across the state, especially in Minneapolis's cultural corridors, struggling to stay open. In response, the Cure Restaurant Recovery Fund, a grassroots effort to support and stabilize the hospitality spaces that anchor communities, has been launched. Local food advocates and industry professionals have teamed with Meet Minneapolis to coordinate a unified citywide effort to help preserve the independent restaurants that define neighborhoods and shape Minnesota's cultural identity. I'm Dave Nershi. I'm chair of the Professional Development Committee. I'm joined today by Corey Solomon, my co-host and president of IFTWA, and we have two special guests who will be bringing this program to you. It's not a political discussion, but a very important discussion about the restaurant community in Minneapolis, and it may have an application to other communities across the country. So our special guest today, I'll begin with Stephanie March. Stephanie is a prominent Minneapolis-based food writer, editor, and media personality, serving as the editor-at-large for Minneapolis St. Paul magazine. She covers the Twin Cities culinary scene, co-hosts the weekly Dish radio show, and has regularly appeared on local television programs, and has also appeared as a food expert on the Cooking Channel, Food Network, and the NBC Today show. Also joining us is Abby Paskey. She's a community champion and local business advocate who currently serves as the VP of Destination Development and Public Affairs for Meet Minneapolis. Her past experience includes leadership roles in a variety of sectors, including local government, nonprofit, and higher education. She was a 2014-15 U.S. Fulbright Scholar in Ukraine. And so to learn more, we're going to turn it over now to Abby. Abby?
I'm going to interrupt a minute. We have one person that's having problems hearing. So, Kathy, can you hear? You're good? Dave, you might be able to help her with that.
Yeah, just make sure that your volume is turned up on the computer, and that would be my suggestion.
She's still having problems.
Okay, I'll work with Kathy in the chat, but
all the way
meanwhile,
up. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. All right.
okay, I'll work with you in the chat. Abby, take her away.
Awesome. All right, can everyone see the presentation that we have?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I will just get us started with a little bit of kind of high-level context in terms of where we are and why we're here. And then Steph and I will kind of be going back and forth in terms of kind of our story that has gotten us here today. So as you all know, the city of Minneapolis, or as you may know, the city of Minneapolis and the greater region has experienced Operation Metro Surge over the past several months. And this has impacted our community and in particular our food and restaurant scene here in Minneapolis. And as a result, as was mentioned, this Salt Cure Fund has been created to address some of the needs that the restaurants are facing. So what we're going to do is kind of give you a lay of the land in terms of the culinary scene in Minneapolis and St. Paul prior to this, what has happened to the restaurant scene during this Operation Metro Surge and what we have done as a result and why that matters to tourism, to our food industry, and to our community. So I will pass it over to Steph to kind of give you the lay of the land of what our restaurant scene was like and has been like in the past few years.
Well, hi, everybody. Thank you for joining today. It's kind of a wonderful thing to talk to people outside of Minnesota about what's happening here because there's just such a vibrant community in food community in Minnesota. And we often feel like sometimes we get, the flyover state situation kind of gets a little bit, it sort of gives us a shine or less of a shine than I think that we deserve living here. Minnesota is obviously having had our name in Minneapolis and Minnesota in the news cycle in the last couple of weeks brings people to kind of wonder about who we are and what it's been like. And obviously our community efforts that have been pushed forward are something that is astounding to a lot of people, but for us, it's very normal. And that is actually a really indicative thing about our food scene as well, because we do have a really community-based food scene. And what I mean by that is that we have a lot of support among our food people and restaurants. We have a really great diverse community of restaurants in the metro area. And one of the things that has always been a hallmark is the level of collaboration that happens and the level of community that they feel for each other. There's when you kind of work in like you have like big cities and then you have mid cities and small towns. We're kind of in this place where I think we're like a small town in a bigger city in the Midwest. And that really speaks to the way that, as you guys probably know, if you're food and travel writers, about the industry in the way that it kind of flows. And if we have somebody who works over here for some time, they kind of move into working for somebody else. And we kind of have that connectivity that allows us to really have a kind of a very community industry, a community-based industry is how I want to say. So we tie to each other and then we tie to our diners in a way that I think is special and unique in that we all understand that it is a rising tide. The rising tide raises all boats. So when, we are sort of famous for having Paul Wellstone, who was a former politician in our midst, used to say that we all do better when we all do better. And that's the best way to sort of really characterize how we all sort of see each other. And in this scene, we have a diverse community. We have a lot of great restaurants in Minneapolis that are not just Swedish restaurants, which some people have in the past believed. We also do eat things that are spicier than ketchup. And that has sometimes been put out there as what our food scene is about. We do eat more than lutefisk as well. We have really an amazing, as Anthony Bourdain once pointed out, Vietnamese community. We have obviously, has been heralded in the past just year, we are sort of at the forefront of the Hmong cuisine. And that's because of our community of refugees and people who've come to Minnesota. And the way that our Hmong cuisine is really sort of setting the standard for what could be, Hmong restaurants in the United States. I've really been looking to two people, Yia Vang and Diane Mua, who are here, both, James Beard Award winners, but also New York Times awarded, best restaurants, really setting a stage. And yet a couple of years ago, we had Owamni, which is an indigenous cuisine restaurant, setting the tone for what that can look like across the country. So I think what's really interesting is that we have been sort of a quiet space. And while we've been quietly working on our own level of cuisine in terms of thinking less about reflecting what's happening on the coasts and really focusing on our own cooks here, we're quietly and steadfastly building something that is solidly unique and different. And yet we're always an agricultural state. So we have 100%, knowledge that we have this amazing, environment where 20 minutes outside of our largest metro area, you can find a farm. Like 20 minutes you can drive and you can learn about who's growing flax and amaranth. And we have cattle farmers who are providing some of the best beef in the country. And we have dairy that sets a standard, par excellence with the international butters. We are the place where the American Cheese Councils, they do their cheese judging here in Minnesota for a reason. So when we're talking about tourism in our restaurants and international cuisine, what's great about, Meet Minneapolis is like, again, with that community aspect, it's not just Minneapolis, it's St. Paul, it's South Minneapolis, it's Columbia Heights, it's everybody. Our metro is this wonderful chunk of restaurants that really all support each other and look to all the cuisines. Our Hmong marketplace, I'll just tell you, in 2018, when we hosted the Super Bowl, that was where I ended up taking more out of town food writers and media people through to let them go through which is basically like a giant food hall before food halls became so important, but it's all run by families who are growing their own food in in the agricultural spaces, and then being this marketplace that's part restaurant, part produce exchange, all of that. And so it's really one of those places where I think we are in a place where I don't think that people even understand how much the immigrant-led kitchens are the building blocks for our food scene.
And we really do at Meet Minneapolis a lot to highlight, not just the international cuisine, but the whole broad spectrum of our food scene. That includes our cultural corridors in the city, which are 7 different neighborhoods with kind of their own unique identity. We also know that visitors, when they come, spend a lot of money on food and beverage in the Twin Cities. Our 2024 data, which is our most up to date visitor data, shows that both between overnight and day visitors, they spent over $2.5 billion on food and beverage here. So a really important part of our visitor economy and our local economy. And then, as you all know, as travel writers, the majority of travelers are now prioritizing food experiences in their destination choices. Among millennials, 3/4 are seeking kind of this authentic local cuisine. So like Steph talked about, we have this really unique Hmong cuisine that we've been building up, as well as the indigenous cuisine and a whole variety of others. A lot of really great Somali food as well. So visitors are a really important part of our local economy, and the food scene is really important to our visitors. So that's kind of where Meet Minneapolis comes into this conversation. Steph, I'll kick it over to you to talk about what this has looked like for the restaurants.
So this was sort of an unprecedented, it feels like Minneapolis has been sort of the epicenter of a lot of stuff, in the last couple of years. And obviously COVID hit everybody, but we like to, kind of reiterate the fact that, our city kind of went through a lot more than what other cities did go through. So, the COVID thing happened, and people, I think, were trying to figure out recovery on that. And we were really kind of 2025 was a year that we were starting to feel like we were pulling back into real significant recovery on just from that. And then unfortunately, the Operation Surge showed up, and it really put restaurants during the hardest time of the year. January is obviously our slowest month. It's just exactly like it says. It's been brutal. And it was something that I think people were not expecting. Not only from a sales perspective, it kind of was a twofold thing. Our community was in pain and hurting, and our restaurants were trying desperately to protect their workers. And they were finding that, that the kitchens were being, the people who are these stalwarts within the kitchens of our restaurant community were finding that they were afraid to go out. They were feeling under attack. They had relatives and family who were, abducted. And so it became this sort of very quiet thing while people were trying to protect their employees and their people, while also then trying to say, please come in and dine with us, because we are suddenly expecting a massive amount of costs that we weren't expecting in terms of driving people, paying overtime, and doing all this economic work that had to kind of stay quiet because they were just trying to protect people. So at the meantime, then they were also standing up for the community who was facing things. So they were doing food drives. They were showing up to be gathering spaces and safe spaces. And when Operation Surge really came into a very publicly I kind of want to, it was just an overwhelming presence, and it became traumatizing for the city itself. You know, when you have all these vehicles and people in masked armor running around the city, that's traumatizing for everybody. And then it's hard to say, hey, let's go out for a celebration dinner tonight. So the community itself found itself, you know, holding back and being doing community work and not necessarily going out. So what we had was this costs and everything else was already rising, and then the idea of the amount of money it takes to protect your people and continue going. And then you had a whole thing where the community itself was just in trauma. And so finding ourselves again in this space where it was hard to figure out how to respond. And so, yeah, the amount of money that people were losing, and then also on top of it, then paying out is something that they find themselves in a hole right now. That is not, it's not an easy answer. It's not an easy fix. And we're not necessarily out of danger with all of that. So that's kind of, yeah.
Did you want us to pause there? Did I hear?
No, go ahead, Abby. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to add to kind of Steph's narrative. We have some more statistics from surveys that we at Meet Minneapolis has done, and also that the city of Minneapolis has done. So most recent survey data from the city of Minneapolis is showing that 43% of Minneapolis restaurants have had to close temporarily or permanently because of Operation Metro Surge. Average reduction in customer traffic has been about 45%, but among those restaurants that responded to the survey in Spanish, customer traffic was down by about 89%. And over 50% of the restaurants are saying they're having trouble hiring or maintaining employees. So to Steph's point, it's not just about fewer customers coming, but also kind of how their staff and their operations have been impacted. And we found that too in the Meet Minneapolis survey. Among our partner organizations, those include restaurants, hotels, retail shops, service providers, but skew heavily among in the hotel and restaurants. 90% of our partners said, even in the first few weeks of Operation Metro Surge, that 90% had been impacted by this federal activity. 80% reporting cancellations, reduction in bookings and sales or postponements, and then it's kind of psychologically, 90% said fear or stress was affecting operations, with 72% reporting staffing absenteeism. So the numbers are not insignificant, which is why Steph kind of jumped up in response with the Salt Cure Restaurant Recovery Fund.
So, and I'll tell you, we started in December when I was talking to restaurateurs and I was hearing what was happening. And this is before the surge. This was when we started to hear that, you know, kind of people were being taken and not showing up and being, as we like, you know, our understanding. And restaurants were starting to understand that they had to start driving their employees to work because people were being taken from bus stops and train stations while they were waiting to go to work. So we started this idea where can we raise some money to help restaurants, you know, pay for gas while they all of a sudden have to create a shuttle service. And it sort of, as everything sort of morphed and changed as January hit, we realized it wasn't going to be enough and that this was going to be a bigger impact than we thought. So we started working to pull together, as people maybe don't know, you can't really create a nonprofit in a week. It just doesn't work to do that. So we had to find one who we could work with. And we ended up partnering up with the Minneapolis Foundation, which is a 110-year-old foundation, you know, very solidly formed and thorough in their structure, so that we could then partner with them as a fiscal partner. So we could drive the fundraising and then they could help us administer what would become free grants. So it's a granting mission to then give critical emergency aid to restaurants right now to help them pay their lease, to help them pay for utility bills, or if they need to pay for their payroll, so that they can continue to operate, so they can continue to protect their staff and have a place to go for people. That's been kind of our big draw, our big push. We have been doing that since January 30th, I believe, as we launched publicly. And we just launched, we've been fundraising through that. We just launched application process, which started on Monday night. And that was the idea of like starting to give, to apply for aid. And then we just started rolling that. And so we're going to keep that open for this full week to see how many, or longer, to see how many. I know for sure we've had 82 restaurants already since yesterday at noon. We've had 82 restaurants apply. Like I said, we had started with $500,000 in monies, up, kind of as this week started. And then we're hoping to get to really kind of amplify that today. So today is our national program that Meet Minneapolis really helped us with launching. This is a National Day of Giving. And we asked, a part of the thing that we started to do, the reason that we thought that this would work as an idea, the Salt Cure Fund, which the Salt Cure is an act of preservation, was the idea that we had all of these voices, across social media saying things like, how do we help? We'd love to support. We saw all these funds being, put into immigrant relief efforts and community aid efforts. And that was fabulous. You guys saw Lords, the musician, donated like some $200,000 to, relief efforts. And so we thought we needed to put something out there in the name of restaurants. And so this became something that we wanted to do, and push forward to be a hub so that people could help donate and support restaurants. And with our work today, we ended up partnering with Toast, which is a back-end, technology platform for restaurants. They decided that they would come on board and help us match up to $100,000 of giving today. So we're extremely excited by that.
And the reason that we as Meet Minneapolis jumped in is kind of in the name of destination development. So in the destination marketing organizations, destination development is enhancing and improving, supporting the infrastructure and assets that make for a more positive visitor experience. And a lot of this work tends to be really forward thinking about how we can, make things better or build new things, or figure out kind of exciting new ways that we can bring more tourists here and visitors here. But in this moment of crisis, where we are at risk of losing such a big part of what people love about Minneapolis when they come, these restaurants, it became really important to us to kind of throw our weight behind the work that Steph was leading. Also, on a more personal level, as someone who is a foodie and enjoys the restaurant scene, this matters for residents too. It's not just for visitors. This is for all of the people in our community. And what we saw was, those numbers that I showed you. Minneapolis is in need of COVID, federal, ARPA, PPP level funding that we don't anticipate getting. So responding to all the questions of people asking, how can we help? Reaching out to destination marketing organizations across the United States, as well as hospitality associations across the United States to say, hey, we're doing this Day of Giving. Can you get any of your restaurants or any of your people who have expressed concern and support for Minneapolis to contribute? So we pulled together kind of a really scrappy team of local PR and communications agencies that were either doing pro bono work with us or really discounted work. And they pulled together some assets that helped us kind of launch this campaign, including this video, which I think I have time to show. Do I, or should I keep going?
You do.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. And we'll make sure you can hear it. Tell me if you can't.
And let me tell you, the only reason I'm open is because my community rally behind me, and a lot of these other businesses.
We need to share the
I feel
screen.
cared for, I feel watched, protected. If it wasn't for that, I swear to God, I would not even be open right now.
So the last few months, the restaurant community has just been hurting and reeling and sad.
We've been through a lot. We had not enough customer come to dine. We don't have enough worker to come. At the moment, we're really worried. Personally, I'm losing sleep from it.
We had to modify our hours to protect our staff.
What has been going on in Minnesota affects all restaurants. The cost of driving people to work, the cost of paying people overtime because some employees don't feel safe coming to work, and we have to keep our doors open. That's what we do. We are here for the community.
This has been the community that really have rallied behind us and continue to support us.
I love that Minneapolis people doing such a great job of taking care of each other. I just hope that everybody could support us during this time.
The best way for people to help restaurants right now is to show up.
Showing up and supporting small local immigrant-owned businesses is important. A lot of them are operating on triage, so it's very limited staff. So please be kind, show up, fill them up, sold them out.
We are here in times of celebration. We're here in times of need. We're here for the good and the bad. That's what community restaurants do.
Okay, so then,
Excuse me,
Turn-
but did
Yeah.
anybody else see anything? I didn't.
Oh, you didn't see it?
I saw it.
My screen is not letting me see anything.
no.
I
Sorry,
did
Colby.
see the whole thing.
I saw it.
I'm only seeing the four all of people. I'm not seeing.
Oh, you're not
you
seeing
have
the,
I'm not seeing a PowerPoint at all.
oh,
What?
Corey, can you choose the view where it says speaker?
Yeah, but that's not putting it up. It's
Okay, is there anyone else who's not seeing the presentation or the video? Enter it into the chat, please.
And Corey, we'll be happy to share this with you after.
Yeah, we're
Video-
recording it.
we're recording, so it will. I can look at it later, but I wasn't sure. It was weird.
Okay, yeah, we haven't gotten any other people saying they're not seeing it.
Well, we don't know what's wrong with mine, so.
Okay,
All right, so I'll let Steph, do you want to talk about kind of goals for
Yeah.
the Salt Care Fund? You kind of touched on that, and how this could be a toolkit for other places.
yeah, we are, one of the things that was really sort of surprising to me as I was looking at trying to figure out how to do this, right? How to form an organization that could then help small businesses like this. You know, there's a lot of nonprofits out there already, and most of them are aimed towards helping workers, and which is amazing and necessary. Places like the Southern Smoke Alliance, which is, you know, based in Houston, but then, you know, really helps workers with mental health and people in the hospitality industry, which is a super necessary place. I had looked at Chicago because they were the last ones, you know, who had seen, you know, the Midway surge. And I knew that they had been sort of, their immigrant neighborhoods had been targeted as well. And I looked to see, and they had little small neighborhood banding together, but there was nothing there to help. They were sort of relying on their neighborhoods to then stand up for them, but there was no citywide movement. So then I kind of looked at the James Beard Foundation. I was looking at all these other foundations that were sort of these national players, and I couldn't really find one that worked for the way that we were talking about critical emergency aid to small businesses that weren't loans. What we were looking for is basically to mimic the PPP, and to give a forgivable grant, to just give free money as a Band-Aid to kind of get them stable and then moving them onward. So we decided that because this was such a strange, you know, thought and process, we needed to document it and then create a blueprint for other cities who are going into this potentially as we see going forward this year. So what we've done is we've really sort of created a toolkit in terms of how we formed this, who we aligned with, and how potentially the different laws impact that. Obviously, every state has a different set of laws, but then we also have ways around that. We also have ways of going forward that we're thinking about in terms of pushing towards different sponsorships of people from other countries and how, to really look at different ways of applying for visas and all this sort of stuff. This is all stuff we're putting into a toolkit that we're going to make available for anybody who wants it. But the real hope is that what we can do is drive also sponsorship dollars from bigger corporations and then create this as a fund that can help other cities. So what we want to do is be able to create a national restaurant coalition towards helping each other. And then as we move forward, can we then, if this happens in Denver, can we then repay by holding fundraisers or driving funds from our community into their community? Because one of the things we notice about ours is that we are in a place where we are, there is a, what we're calling like a fundraiser fatigue. And so people have been giving a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of resources to sustain us. And that's why this day, National Day of Giving, felt important, because people are exhausted and it's not over. And so if we could get an uplift from someone outside of the state, I can't tell you, we've had restaurant groups in Los Angeles, in Seattle, in New York have all stood up and raised funds and done dinners and done all of this work to then feed, and then donated the monies to us. And that's like, I can't even tell you what that feels like, what it feels like, the community aspect of that. And I think that there's something lacking in the national scope on that. So if Salt Cure can become something like that for everybody else as we keep going forward, and we find out that North Carolina is hit by a hurricane and their restaurants are struggling, can we raise money to help them with that? That's our goal. That's our long-term goal. So I think that the industry as a whole comes together around awards. We see the James Beard Awards, be this thing. And I know that they're trying to move in those directions, but they're also then an award catalyst. And so there's a lot of weird feelings about that, because it is sort of from the industry, but over the industry. Whereas what we're trying to do is build something that really speaks among the industry. So if you guys, I think there's a question.
Yeah.
Stephanie, thank you for those comments. I just wanted to ask you, obviously, restaurants are struggling, and the video showed several who were having difficulties keeping the doors open. I'm assuming restaurants have closed. Do you know how many have ceased operation at this point?
I don't really know. I don't have like a number that has done this. A lot of them close very quietly. I'll be quite honest with you. They just shut their doors and they put a sign on the door, because part of what the Salt Cure does is that we understand that one of the things that by gathering funds from around into one place and then dispersing, we can do that privately and quietly. A lot of restaurants felt that if they put their voices out there, they were going to be targeted by the ICE operations. And it is true, because Pedro, as you saw in that video, yesterday I found out that, so we've circulated that video got 10,000 views, in the matter of days. He was targeted yesterday, just full on, at his front door, and they ended up locking the doors. And so what happens if in the surge is, if a neighborhood is under siege, there's a lot of activity in the neighborhood, a lot of restaurants feel like they have to close for a couple days or like a week, and then they quietly open and they see if it feels good with their community, or there's a few of them who have been shut for a couple weeks, and we're hoping that we can help bring them back. There's some that may not come back. We don't know.
And the data from the city, so this is, people who opted into completing a survey, are showing that 43% of Minneapolis restaurants have closed either temporarily or permanently because of this.
Wow.
And I would say that one of the most important factors was on January 23rd. Many of you saw that we had a demonstration in the middle of Minneapolis that brought 75,000 people down on a what if it was called a general strike day or whatever it was. The truth is that most restaurants could not afford to close that day. And they did that. The loss of sales on that Friday was very critical. And yet hundreds of them chose to close because of the fact that they understood that their team, the people who are working there, needed to be a part of something and needed to make a stand other than just like trying to protect their people. So they needed to be had their voices heard, and so we had hundreds of restaurants close that day, and that's a day of lost monies that we were trying to help them make up.
Okay, and speaking of making up, how has the response been financially?
From everybody?
Yeah.
You mean the fundraising response? It's been great. We've been, wonderfully surprised by the amount of national restaurants and organizations that have, and just people who have said, who have called us and said, our heart goes out to you, and they send us funds. And we've, like I said, we've raised about $500,000. This is all just us. We don't have any. We until Toast and their activation today to match funds up to 100,000. This has all been grassroots fundraising. This has not been. We haven't gotten any massive donations from other corporations at all. It's all just and any of the big checks that we have gotten, like we got a $50,000 check from a personal family foundation in Minnesota. So it's been like from $25 to like I said, a $50,000 check. That was like, what? And that's family giving, and that's community giving. So we're hoping to keep going forward. We are continuing to raise funds as much as we can. And as the grants go, we're going to roll them out every week. We'll have a selection meeting and then roll that funding out. And we're going to work into doing some storytelling on the backside of this. So we're launching a Substack that will have stories around the recipients and the food scene, and sort of that's an act of preservation as well, which is why I thought that this was a wonderful opportunity to come talk to you guys, because you as writers understand that storytelling is preservation. And so we wanted to be able to sort of help you guys understand what our stories were.
Absolutely. And so Pam Baker was asking about contact information, and Kristen provided that.
Yeah.
She thinks a story about Salt Cure would give you even more exposure. So thank
We'd
you,
love it.
Pam, for that. That would be great.
I have a couple of questions, and then also, since we're such a small group, I don't think we really need to put questions in the chat. I think we can just, if you have a question, just raise your hand and we'll call on you. How's that? I have two questions actually. How long do they feel this this program will go on? I mean, is there a deadline on it, or is it?
Nope. No deadline.
Deadline.
No, the amount of money, I will be totally blunt with you that if I could raise $10 million, I could do really great things. But that's what's going to be needed to fix this, is about $10 million. And so if I could raise $10 million, then I could say, sure, then we're good. But we're going to keep raising money and keep helping as much as we can, because we're not even the work that we're doing prioritizes the small immigrant run restaurants to start. So we're not even touching some of the bigger restaurants that are culinary trendsetters, because they need, some of our restaurants have lost $180,000 in the first 2 months of the year. That's not a sustainable thing. And so, but I can't give them, if I raise $500,000, I can't give one group $100,000. So to say that the need is 10 million is not an exaggeration. But I understand, and most of those restaurants understand that this fund is here to help stabilize the base, the foundation of our Twin Cities food scene, and that then we can keep working to keep building together.
My other question is, and you may have kind of answered it, but I wasn't sure. What you call it, Salt Cure? What is the salt part? I guess, what is it standing for? Is it
I mean, if you want to get it, the thing that we thought about was, this is, a salt cure is a cooking technique. And obviously you guys know, if you've ever cooked a turkey, you know about brining, and brining is a wet cure. A salt cure is usually just where you pack something in salt and it preserves it. So for us, having it be a salt cure, it's an act of preservation. And for us, it's not necessarily, it's about adding our seasoning back into our community and protecting them, sort of by holding them and giving them that little bridge to get into helping them change the circumstances of the moment. Does it have a little cheeky nod to melting ice? I'm going to let you think about that so that you can feel that. A lot of people think that there's a little something to that, but for mostly us, it's really about, because this is the thing, is like we want to preserve our food culture, and we can't do that if we lose half of our restaurants in one year. So it's about preservation for us, really.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Andy, I know you had a question, so why don't you ask it? You're muted. Unmute.
Because I'm based in Los Angeles, I would be interested in knowing more about the group of restaurants or the restaurant that did a fundraiser for you. That might be something I could tie into. Any more specific information, please?
You know what? If you want to send me an email, I could send you the list of it. I don't have them with me in front of me, but we did have a number of restaurants that were all coming together. There's a bake sale that was happening in LA, and there were people who ordered big boxes of bakery items, and then all of those bakeries then put baked goods in there, and then that money from that specific bakery sale went to Salcure. And there was a number of them. I can send it to you if you want to.
No,
Just
I can email you, but understand Los Angeles was impacted by ice way before Minneapolis, and from that, the
understandably.
restaurants that have closed in downtown LA, specifically the Arts District, it's very sad. So we feel that directly here.
Yeah, no, and in fact, we've had some conversations with some people in those restaurants back and forth about the fact that, just in terms of like what it has meant for them to cultivate community, to be able to fill their restaurants. And that's something that I think people saw in Minnesota, which is a very natural act for us. We are very naturally community oriented. And so for us to say, I literally had groups of co-working moms who said, give me a list of 10 restaurants that we can then co-work in these restaurants every day this week. And so we've been facilitating those kind of things and then passing that on with our LA friends in terms of like, what are some of the people doing to support, and then saying, can we help, facilitate that with your communities? So we have had sort of these conversations, not me personally, but people in our organization have. So
understood,
because the community aspect of this is the vital piece.
And it's something that could become nationwide if, if things continue, or it's something that, like with COVID, when COVID happened, it's something that can be, I guess, adapted to whatever circumstance it is.
Yeah. And I would also add to that, we've had a number of people who were saying that they were willing to come to Minneapolis. I know that there was this very big draw that people were feeling like they need to be here. Or they're like, should we come? What should we do? And what we started, people were offering to cook in restaurants, which was awesome. I loved it when they were like, a bunch of people in Madison were like saying, we'll be there. We'll just fill the restaurant. We can cook for you guys, if you need help. And some people did take them up on it. But what we decided to message out was it would be really helpful if you guys paid attention to the way that we did this and start building your community now. So start creating signal chats, start creating a food resource group, start interacting with your neighborhoods and finding out who's connected and finding out how to build these systems, which will sustain you. If you do this now, then you have that safety net in place. That's more important than coming to, hit our safety nets up, which are working.
I have a question that sort of ties in with that. How about setting up a group press trip so we could get, boots on the ground, actual pictures and a real story to tell people that there is a reason to go visit and try these restaurants, and not only the restaurants, all of the things to see and do there. Is there any possibility of that coming along?
That's Kristen.
Yeah, Kristen.
I think that's an Abby answer.
Yeah, and I'm calling on my colleague Kristen.
Oh, that's Kristen Montag. Yeah, that's true.
Hi. I'm sorry, I didn't even hear the question because I was actually just copying something else I was going to share on the chat. But are you talking about just
Can we do a media fam to Minneapolis?
Media
Kristen?
fam. Well,
Trying to get
I will tell you that I'm always open to hosting individual trips. I don't have a group trip planned right now. It's something we could look at for sure. But if any of you are interested in coming and doing on the ground story and visiting the restaurants and that sort of thing, I'm happy to help with that. So,
Kristen, I can get you in contact with, she couldn't be here today. Susan Lanier Graham works with our media trips, and maybe something could be with just specifically IFTWA, starting with some of the people that are on this webinar. That's something we maybe can, I can get you connected with her and see if that's something you're interested in doing, but I can have her reach out to you.
okay. Yeah, I don't have like a separate budget that's just for like a group trip right now, but what I can do is help coordinate individual trips usually. And if a couple of people wanted to come at the same time, that would be potentially possible as well. So definitely I can talk.
a small group trip, maybe just 3 or 4 people. And as in 4 people, we get it. We understand the situation. We would be good to write about that.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, and I left my email on the chat as well with Abby's and Steph's, so you can feel free to reach out to me for any of those kinds of needs.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have other questions or comments?
I'm just going to say for Kristen, Abby, and Stephanie, this is recorded, and when we can share it with you. So if you want to use it for something else, you're welcome to. So we'll have it out shortly. It won't be right away. I mean, it won't be today, that's for sure.
No, that's fine. And
it should be done by Wednesday.
And I also provided a link to the press release and also the toolkit that's currently available. That's got some logos and things on it. So if you choose to share it on social or write a story or anything, you can feel free to use that material and then let me know if you need other things.
Are there in that toolkit, are there images? I mean, we know we have the image that we used for today's webinar.
Yeah, the one from today we just kind of created here because it was before the toolkit was ready, but the toolkit does have some images and social media posts and things like that. So if you don't see what you need in there, just reach out to me and I'll help get it.
Okay.
It's a Google Drive, so it's got a lot of stuff available.
Perfect.
Okay, well, I want to thank everyone for attending today. It's been a very fascinating program. So, Kristen, Stephanie, and Abby, thank you so much for sharing this important story with us. So, appreciate it. Thank you again, everyone, for being here today, and we hope to see you in future webinars. That concludes our program. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.